Childhood memories. When my father came home drunk, he hurt me and my mother. Some secrets sink deep into the bayou, but mine need to breathe. I'm Margaret Dawson, and this is how I survived. I never thought I'd tell this story at 83. Folks see me now, a grandma to 7, living in my old wooden house by the edge of Mossy Hollow Bayou in southern Louisiana. They don't know the weight I've carried all these years. The still waters and ancient oaks around my home once stood quiet as I suffered. Before I share my story, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel for more real stories of survival. It took me a lifetime to speak up, and I'm grateful for every listener out there. Drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. It means the world to know my voice is reaching people far and wide. Here's how my story began. I was born in 1942 in a forgotten corner of Lafourche Parish, Louisiana. Back then, our little piece of the world felt like it was lost in time. My family lived off the bayou. My dad, Henry, ran a small bait shop for the rare fishermen who ventured into the swamp. "The bayou takes care of us," he'd say before the war broke him. "The water gave us crawfish, the woods gave us deer, and our tiny garden gave us okra and tomatoes. We didn't have much money, but we had enough to get by." My mom, Evelyn, made pretty woven mats from palmetto leaves and sold them at the market in Thibodaux, about 25 miles away. Life was plain but good until Daddy went to war in 1943. When he came back in 1945, he wasn't the same. The Henry Dawson who returned was a ghost of the man we knew. His kind, laughing eyes had gone dark and empty, like the muddy bottom of the bayou. He carried shadows from the war that never left him. At first, he tried to chase them away with homemade liquor from Mr. Boudreau, who had a still hidden deep in the swamp. The drinking started on weekends, when his nightmares were the worst. Soon, it was every day. The sour smell of cheap whiskey would hit me before he even stepped inside. Our little house, built by my grandpa from sturdy cypress, used to feel safe. It sat high on stilts to keep out the floodwaters, with a big porch where Mom and I would snap beans and watch the herons glide at sunset. But after Daddy came back, that house turned into my prison. "Get out of sight, Margaret," Mom would whisper when we heard his boat chugging through the reeds. "Hurry, sweetheart, hide." I'd scramble to my hiding spot, a narrow space under the floorboards, reached by lifting a loose plank under my bed. It was tight for my 8-year-old self, but I'd curl up small, knees to my chest. From that dark hole, I heard everything. The creak of his boots on the porch steps. The door banging open. His voice, thick with drink. "Where's my food? This place is a pigsty." No matter how hard Mom cleaned or how fast she cooked, it was never good enough. The first time he hit her, I didn't understand the sound. A sharp smack, like a stick breaking, then Mom's soft cry. "Please, Henry," she'd plead, "Margaret will hear." But that only made him madder. "Let her hear," he'd bellow. "This is my house, and you'll both learn to behave." Some nights were worse than others. If the fish weren't biting, if a customer grumbled, if his boat wouldn't start, anything could spark his rage. The liquor turned small problems into explosions. Mom took the brunt of it, always stepping between him and my room to protect me. But some nights, her shield wasn't enough. I'd hear him yell, "Where's that girl? Where's she hiding?" The fear from those moments still sits heavy in my chest, the pounding heart, the quick breaths, the silent prayers that the floor wouldn't give me away. Our neighbors were too far to hear us. The closest family, the LeBlancs, lived 3 miles down the waterway. The bayou's thick moss and vines ate up sound. Plus, folks around here had a rule: a man's home is his business. Mom started wearing long dresses, even in the sticky Louisiana heat. She'd brush off questions at the market, saying a bruise on her arm was from falling off the dock or bumping into a tree. I learned to lie, too, telling my teacher I got a black eye from tripping on the porch. The worst night came during a storm in the summer of 1952. I was 10. Rain poured for days, flooding parts of the bayou that were usually dry. Daddy couldn't fish, couldn't open the shop, couldn't leave the house. He'd been drinking since dawn, his temper growing like a storm cloud. When his whiskey ran out, his anger boiled over. I was in my hiding spot when I heard Mom scream, not her usual quiet sob, but a cry that froze my blood. There was a crash, the sound of glass breaking, and a thud so loud it rattled the floor above me. I don't know what made me move that night. Maybe it was Mom's scream going silent. Maybe it was a deep down feeling that if I didn't act, something awful would happen. I pushed up the plank and climbed out to see Daddy standing over Mom's still body. A shattered whiskey bottle was in his hand, blood and liquor pooling on the floor. "You killed her," I said, my voice small and strange. "You finally killed her." He turned to me, his eyes blurry, like he didn't know who I was. Then his face shifted, maybe shock, maybe a flicker of shame. But it was too late for that. That night marked the start of the end of our nightmare, but the road to freedom was long and rough. Mom didn't die, though I sometimes think part of her soul slipped away forever. Dr. Landry from Thibodaux came to our house after I rowed our spare boat through the rain to the LeBlanc's place. He stitched the gash on Mom's head and fixed her broken wrist, his face tight with worry. But like everyone in La Fourche Parish, he didn't ask questions. "She slipped," Daddy said, suddenly clear enough to lie. "Evelyn's always clumsy on wet boards. I told her to watch her step." Dr. Landry looked at me, huddled in the corner, hugging myself. Then he looked at Daddy. "Keep her resting, Henry. Head wounds are dangerous." That's all he said before he packed his bag and left. That night changed things, but not the way I wanted. Daddy got smarter, not better. He left marks where clothes would cover them. He made sure no one saw the worst of it. And he figured out that threatening Mom kept me in line. "Say one word, Margaret," he'd growl, squeezing my arm until it bruised. "Your mom will suffer for it. Got it?" I got it. By the time I was 16 in 1958, I was a master at hiding our truth. At school, I was shy but sweet, got good marks, and sang in the choir at St. Mary's Church. Every Sunday, we went, Daddy in his clean shirt, Mom and I in long dresses, no matter how hot it was. We looked like a hard-working Bayou family, poor but faithful. "Those Dawsons are good people," I heard Mrs. Thibodaux say at a church supper. "Henry fought for us, and look how he cares for Evelyn and Margaret." I wanted to shout the truth until my voice gave out. But instead, I smiled and served them Mom's pecan pie. The 1960s brought news of a changing world. We had electricity in the house by then, and an old radio Daddy fixed up let us hear about marches, wars, and women fighting for rights. It all felt like another planet compared to our quiet bayou. Nothing changed at home, though. If anything, Daddy got angrier as time went on. Fewer fishermen came to his shop, wanting airboat tours instead of his old ways. The world was moving on, leaving him behind, and he buried that feeling in more whiskey. By 1965, I was 23. Most girls my age had married or left for cities like Baton Rouge or New Orleans. But I stayed, tied to the house by love for Mom and fear of what Daddy would do if I left. "You should go, Margaret," Mom whispered one night as we sat on the porch, shucking corn while Daddy slept off his drink. She was only 45, but her face was lined, her hair gray, her shoulders bent from years of fear. "There's nothing here for you but pain." "I can't leave you with him," I said, like I always did. She took my hand, her fingers rough and thin. "I chose this life when I married him. You deserve better." But she didn't understand. I'd given up on dreams beyond the bayou. I'd had one chance at something else. Thomas Landry, the grocer's son, took a liking to me when I'd pick up supplies. He was kind, always offering to carry my bags or give me a cold drink on hot days. He was everything Daddy wasn't. In 1963, he asked me to the parish fair, and I said yes, craving a taste of normal life. That night, laughing, holding his hand on the carousel, tasting sweet pralines, felt like a stolen moment. Daddy was waiting on the porch when Thomas brought me home, his eyes sharp and dangerous. He thanked Thomas politely, but as soon as the truck drove off, he grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. "You think you're better than us?" he snarled, hitting me with each word. "Your job is here, taking care of your mom. You owe us." Mom tried to stop him, and he shoved her into the wall. The next day, when Thomas came by with a flower, I met him at the dock and told him we were done. The hurt in his eyes stayed with me for years. Life fell into a dark routine after that. I ran the bait shop while Daddy drank. Sometimes he'd vanish for days, and those moments felt like catching my breath after being underwater. Mom and I would sit on the porch, sometimes talking, sometimes just listening to the crickets and frogs. In the summer of 1968, something new happened. The DuPont family moved into Mr. Boudreau's old place after he passed. They weren't from here, came from Virginia with plans to start a swamp tour business. Their daughter, Clara, was my age, dragged along and not thrilled about it. Clara found me right away, eager for a friend in this strange place. She'd show up at the shop, asking about the bayou, local ways, and my life. She was different, bold, wearing jeans, talking about women's rights like it was normal. "Don't you want more than this?" she asked one day, waving at the swamp around us. We were on the dock behind the shop, feet over the water. "This is all I've got," I said, the words heavy. "That's not what I asked," she said, her eyes seeing right through me. Before I could answer, Daddy's boat came around the bend. One look at his sloppy steering told me he was drunk, even though it was barely noon. "You'd better go," I told Clara, standing up fast. She frowned but grabbed her things. As she left, she said, "We're having a barbecue Saturday. You and your folks should come." I nodded, knowing we wouldn't go. Sure enough, Daddy laughed off the invite when I mentioned it. "City folks," he sneered, "think they can change the bayou. They won't last a season." But Clara changed something in me. She planted a spark, a thought that maybe I could want more. That I could break the silence that trapped us. That spark grew during the worst night since the storm of '52. It was early fall, 1969. Daddy had gone to Thibodaux for supplies and came back furious because his truck broke down. He stormed into the kitchen where Mom was canning peaches. I was outside, hanging laundry, when I heard a crash. By the time I got inside, he had Mom pinned against the counter, his hand on her throat. Broken jars were scattered on the floor. "You're useless," he slurred, "all these years, and you give me nothing but trouble." Mom's eyes were wide, gasping for air, her arms limp. She wasn't fighting back, like she'd given up. In that moment, I knew one of us wouldn't survive if this didn't stop. I'd never hit anyone in my life. Violence had always made me sick. But there I was, holding a heavy iron pan, my hands shaking. Daddy let go of Mom and turned to me, his eyes cloudy with drink. "What are you doing, girl?" he growled. Mom slid to the floor, coughing, touching the red marks on her neck. The pan felt like it weighed a ton. "Let her go," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "Don't touch her again." He laughed, a mean, empty sound. "You gonna hit your own dad? After all I've done for you?" He stepped toward me, boots crunching on glass. "Put that down before you hurt yourself." I didn't move. All the fear I'd carried for 27 years turned into something hard and sharp. I thought of Claire's words. of stories I'd heard on the radio about women standing up. I thought of Mom, broken by years of his fists. "I mean it," I said, louder. He lunged, and I swung the pan. It hit his shoulder, not hard enough to knock him down, but enough to make him stumble. He stared at me, shocked, like he couldn't believe I'd fought back. Mom pulled herself up, her voice hoarse. "Henry, stop, it's over." He looked between us, his face twisting with rage and something else, maybe fear. "You'll regret this," he spat, but he backed toward the door. That night, everything changed. I rode to the LeBlanc's house and told them what happened. For the first time, someone listened. Mrs. LeBlanc called the sheriff. And by morning, Daddy was gone, taken to a jail in Thibodaux. Mom was bruised and shaken, but alive. The town started talking. Other women came forward, sharing stories of Daddy's drunken threats and violence. He'd hurt more people than I knew. The court sent him to prison for 5 years. Mom and I rebuilt our lives. I kept running the bait shop, but I also started teaching kids about the bayou, sharing its beauty instead of its pain. Mom began smiling again, weaving her mats and singing old songs. Clara became my best friend, pushing me to dream bigger. In 1972, I met a kind man named Paul, a fisherman who loved the bayou like I did. We married, had 3 kids, and built a life full of love. Daddy came back after his sentence, but he wasn't the same. Prison and shame had worn him down. He lived alone in a shack far from us and never bothered us again. I'm 83 now, and I've lived a good life. My kids grew up strong, and my grandkids fill my house with laughter. Paul passed a few years ago, but we had 40 happy years together. I still live by Mossy Hollow Bayou, in the house where I was born. I tell my story so others know they can fight back, that they can break free. If you're out there, feeling stuck, hear this. You're stronger than you know. You're not alone. You can make it through.